Hi, everyone. My name is Alexandra Vasquez. I'm a senior content marketing specialist at G2. Today, I am joined by Adam Walker, co-founder and head of marketing and operations at Edgewise Media, a podcast marketing content agency. Hi, Adam. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, good to be here. Appreciate you having me.
I'm really looking forward to chatting with you, Adam, about your career and how you support other companies as a fractional CMO. But before we jump in too deep, I'd love to learn just a little bit more about you. Can you share your background and what inspired you to co-found Edgewise?
Yeah, wow, there's a lot there. I always start my bio with husband and father of five. So we got a bunch of kids running around, and I started a bunch of companies. My background, I had a digital marketing agency for a decade. Then we were acquired by a larger agency and was there for a bit. And then COVID hit, and I jumped over and did some chief marketing officer work. And then we started Edgewise, went full time into that in, I think, 2021, and have been growing that. And then recently, I'm still doing Edgewise, which is, like you mentioned, the podcast first marketing content agency. But I also have started personally doing fractional CMO work separate from Edgewise. And so that's been a pretty interesting journey that started this fall. And I was able to kind of utilize my skills and my strategy to help smaller businesses that can't afford a full-time chief marketing officer, and they can now have the strategy they need to grow because I'm not full-time, I'm fractional, which is nice.
Yeah, that's great. So you perfectly defined there for those who didn't know what a fractional CMO is, but I'd love to hear you dive a little bit deeper into what your exact responsibilities are as a fractional CMO and what motivated you to take on those roles for other companies.
Yeah, I'll answer those in reverse order if that's all right. So I ran an agency here, and we were full service digital. And I like working with companies that are, say, 2 million to 20 million in revenue. And the problem most of those companies face with marketing is they do one of a couple of things. They'll either hire a junior or mid-level marketing person full-time and think that's going to solve their marketing problems. And it doesn't, because that person doesn't have the background and knowledge to really know what to do, what to focus on, how to say no to other people in the organization. And so that person gets just inundated with work, but it's not actually moving the needle forward for the organization in terms of growing revenues. That's one problem. The other problem is they'll hire an agency, and smaller agencies will often do fine, like in certain specific areas. Like most of the time, they're focused on SEO, or they're focused on websites or whatever. But if you go to a larger agency and they say, "Oh, we're going to do all of your digital marketing," then they'll get assigned to an account manager. And that account manager will be the strategist for that account. And then eventually you'll get bumped to a more junior account manager. And then again, the strategy falters because you don't have a high level person that's overseeing everything. So what I decided to do was take a very different approach. And so I say, okay, well, bring me in. I'll be a part of your team. So when I'm talking about company plans, I'm talking about our plans. Like I want to be a part of your team, but a part-time part of your team. And I'm going to provide that high-level strategy that you need in order to grow. And then when you need the different pieces and components to make marketing work, I'll pull in my contacts, I'll pull in my contractors, I'll pull in other agencies, I'll pull in the people that you need that are specialists and do what they do. And I'll manage those people for you. And you'll get the best of both worlds, but for much less cost. That's the idea behind it. And also the other thing that happens is they'll bring me in, and there will be a marketing person on staff. But again, that marketing person's inundated. They oftentimes, struggle with maybe some of the right focus. And so I help sort of guide that person along the way. And they're usually great marketers. They're great people. They do great work. They just need a little bit of extra strategy that they just haven't had the experience to have yet in their careers.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to get even more detailed into the exact benefits from the company's perspective of why they would want a fractional CMO as an alternative to a permanent position.
Yes, I mean, if you think about it this way, right? So let's assume we're talking about a company that doesn't have a marketing team. So they can bring in me, and they can bring in and I can bring in the right contractors to do work. and they're going to spend between $6,000 and $8,000 a month to get all of the things done that they need done, and to have the high level strategy done that they need done, and the guidance providing, like making the marketing all work together. Alternatively, they can hire 1 to 2 full-time people for that price, but those 1 to 2 full-time people are often not going to be specialists in any particular area. They're going to be more generalists, and they're typically going to be a little more junior, so they don't have the foresight to be able to see the strategy as it should play out to grow the organization. And so the benefit is you get that very high level strategy that's going to help actually grow marketing for the organization. And by grow marketing, I really mean grow revenue, grow sales, grow the organization. And you also get the implementation of that strategy, because I'm bringing in people and helping to implement that strategy as well, but it's not taking my personal time. And that allows me to have, quite a few clients where I'm doing the high level strategy and I'm bringing in people to do the actual work. And then I'm, checking off the work as it goes. Yes, this is correct. Yes, this is correct. No, that has to go back. That's not how we need to word that. I know that's not going to work. I know that from past experience. And so you get a lot of value for what you invest. And I think it really pays off in dividends.
That's great. That's awesome. Thank you. And I'd love to look at from your perspective. Your time as a fractional CMO is finite. So what kind of steps do you take to understand the unique needs and challenges of the companies that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I usually take the first 2 months to dive in pretty deep into the company. And that involves everything from looking at every marketing channel, reviewing like a ton of social media posts, looking at the website. How do they talk about themselves? Signing up for their email newsletter. Do they have a welcome series of emails? What do those emails say? How does it all tie together? What does the brand look like? And then, digging into the backside. So what do the analytics say? What content are they putting out there that's obviously performing well? What content do they put out there that's not working? Are they spending a lot of time on a social media platform that has no followers versus a social media platform that has a lot of followers? So I'm looking at all of that stuff and really digging deeply into that for the first 2 months. I also look for places in the first 2 months where I can get some quick wins. So pretty often, especially if it's an organization that's say 5 million or so, they'll already be doing some marketing, but something about that marketing is just not quite hitting. Something's not quite working right. And usually I can find a way to find a quick win or two in there to help optimize what's already happening, but make it work better. And then from there, we can begin to work on what's the strategy, what's the long-term look like, where are we going to grow next? How do we want to focus for the next quarter? And begin building out a full marketing strategy for them so that I can really help them grow from that point forward.
Yeah, and I can imagine from your perspective, it can be pretty difficult to work on those marketing strategies with different companies in maybe even completely different industries at the same time. So how do you develop those strategies for multiple companies simultaneously?
Yeah, well, I mean, the nice thing is like it doesn't tend to be simultaneous. Like I started one client, I think this month. I think it's the only client I've started this month, right? So I've kind of got other clients that are partway through their strategy. We're in the implementation phase. We're executing, but I've got a new client that I'm working on a new strategy for. And so, I mean, honestly, what I find I have to do is really digest a ton of information and take a walk. Get out of get away from the screen and start thinking about what's going to make this work. And I'm thinking about that and based on what are the client's goals. So who do we want to sell to? What do we want to sell more of? What are the channels? Where are we? And how do I begin to ramp that up? And usually there's some pretty straightforward ways for each type of client, depending on if they're e-commerce or if they're business to business or if they're business to consumer. And I can start to say, okay, well, I see the pattern. This is similar to these other clients that I've done before. And here's what's worked. And let's start to scale that up from here. And then we put the plan into place. I've got a lot of kind of templates that I've built out over the years that help with that. And we start to put the plan into place and execute, see what works. And marketing's art. So some things work, some things don't. Some things work for one client and don't work for the next. And you have to be ready to change and implement something different and test and test and test and test and try something new.
Yeah, so that's perfect lead to my next question, because a big thought that I had when I was thinking about how a fractional CMO might work is that a lot of campaigns take quite a bit of time to see like measurable success. So I'm curious, how do you measure success during your time with the companies when you're working on a fractional basis?
Yeah, I mean, I try to set pretty clear metrics. What are the specific goals that we're trying to meet? So for some companies, that's going to be like a marketing qualified lead. For some, it's going to be a marketing qualified lead leading to a sales qualified lead. For some, it's going to be a simple, can we build our email list with this lead gen tool? For others, it's going to be something different. So I try to always ask them like, what's the metric that's going to help your organization grow the most? And then let's talk about how we get to that metric, and let's talk about how we measure success along the way. And then that's all we track against for that particular client. And it's just different for each one. I mean, it's always similar, but ultimately every client's a little bit unique in that. And so I just set good metrics, track against them. Everybody's happy.
Great. And I actually have a thought that popped up when you were talking about it's a question I'd love to ask you. So when you're measuring success, do you always like stick around to see that success? Does it feel weird sometimes to maybe leave a project when it hasn't maybe completely tied up all the knots at the end? How does that feel from your perspective?
I mean, I'll stick around as long as the client is happy to have me around. I don't ever want to work with somebody. I mean, if there comes a point where a client's not satisfied with the growth, they're not satisfied with how things are going, maybe things that we've tried haven't worked, and they want to go somewhere else, like that, they have to do what's best for their organization always. Like that's what they have to do, and I get that. But I'll stick around if they let me, and I'll keep helping and grow. I like the companies and the teams that I work with. They do great work. I typically don't work with a company that's not kind of great in some way and doesn't have good people. And so I like all the people that I work with. And so yeah, I mean, some results are slower than others, for sure. But yeah, I'll stick around if I can.
Cool. Okay. I was curious about that because
Yeah.
I guess I was mostly curious how long some of these stints can be. Like how I guess what's like the minimum you've done and then maybe the maximum.
Yeah.
Curious.
So, I mean, so I would say the minimum ideally would be 3 months. I don't really think you're going to be able to see much. I mean, it just takes that long to get a couple of quick wins and to get a strategy in place and to start executing against a strategy. Like that's kind of the minimum to see something. I think ideally I'd like to be around a year or more, because that's where you can start to really see like actual payoff. You see the actual, it just takes time. I mean, marketing's not, it's a machine that you build and it gets going very slowly, but it grows by momentum. And so as you gain momentum, it goes faster and faster and gets better and better and better and better over time. But it just takes a while to gain enough momentum to really see that growth.
Great, great. And I'd love to close us out on kind of like a forward-looking type of question. So do you think that fractional C-suite in general kind of roles will become more common in the future?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think it's going to depend on the size organization, because there's a size at which an organization needs a full-time C-suite in every position, right? It's different for every industry, but I'd say when you're 20 million, 2 to 20 million, very often you don't need somebody full-time in that spot. And if you can get high quality thinking, high quality strategy, and high quality leadership and execution from somebody on a part-time basis, and it's a win for you because you're saving money, and it's a win for them because they're making money, but also able to like do a variety of things, like that's a pretty big win for both of you. And I don't see why you would not do it. I mean, like fractional CFO, chief financial officer, has been pretty common for quite a while, because I think organizations that size have realized like, oh, crunching these numbers isn't a full-time job. And it's really the same thing with marketing, like being the highest level strategist in a company of that size for marketing typically doesn't have to be a full-time job. Now, it certainly can be. I mean, I've been on staff at organizations that are that size. I've been the chief marketing officer full-time, but I mean, full confession, a large majority of my time was spent in internal meetings, just doing internal company stuff that didn't really move marketing forward. So if I had to take out only the marketing part of that and leading the team, it would have taken me a day, maybe to a week. And so I think if that's true, and I've seen it be true multiple times over, then why not try it and save some money and get better quality stuff?
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, that wraps up our chat with Adam Walker, co-founder and head of marketing and operations at Edgewise Media and the occasional fractional CMO. For more industry insights content, please check out our blog at learn.g2.com/tag/industry-insights. See you next time, and thank you so much again, Adam.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll mention too, if anybody wants to connect with me, I've got a website, adamjwalker.com, and it's got links to all the various things. I've got several companies right now, and I won't bore you with all those, but adamjwalker.com has links to all the stuff.